In the last section, we introduced and talked about the benefits of having a repository. Actually, this means using repository pattern to interact with our data and database. I already mentioned that this course is not about domain-driven design, is not about any pattern or such things. We are just going to introduce features of having a standard web API in ASP.NET Core. That's all. But since I hit the wall already, because I have to have some things to use, it forced me to talk about these things a little bit. So, in this section, I will introduce and show you some things about how to implement a simple repository. Later on, when I can add Entity Framework as an ORM, I will make it complete. So, what I am trying to say now in this section would be useless till I can have something like an Entity Framework ORM. Okay, let's go. Previously, I have created something funny and called it car repo to just have a class with some methods to play with. Now, I'm going to use something a little bit more serious. So, in the infra, I created a new folder and called it interface. So the first step is having a generic repository like this. I hope you are familiar with generics in C#. Based on your requirement and your architecture, you might need some different methods like get, getAll, find, add, remove, these things. It depends on your necessities. Because we are lazy and we do not want to repeat one thing multiple times, instead of creating so many classes, because now I have just a simple model which is car. Imagine that in a real project you had 200 models and they are not that simple, they are complicated. So instead of creating so many different class, you can create something generic like this with all the default methods that you need. Then keep it in your mind. I will go for iCar repository. It is a simple inheritance, and instead of T, I'm gonna use my model. That's all. Then again, inside the data layer, I created a repository folder and then a car repository. Car repository also is inherited from generic repository with car and then iCar repository. So all of these methods would be functional for car repository without writing even one line of code. But we have to inject it into the pipeline. I already did. I created a region and called it repositories. At first, I registered my generic repository and then car repository. Okay. Now, I have a car repository, and because of the inheritance, I have some methods. But there is something in between. the issue is that here also I need to implement this iGeneric repository. So inside the infra, I created another folder and called it generics, and inside it I have generic repository. So the body of the methods are here like this. See? Now we have a big problem. There is no body for the methods. Why? Because there is no ORM. There is nothing to connect me to the database. There is nothing to play with inside the body of this repository. If I had an ORM, I could say, for example, inside add this entity to that ORM and play with database. But now I have nothing. So in the next section, or I can say next sections, I have to teach you guys how to implement and how to deal with entity framework in .NET Core. Then I can add the entity framework and that ORM, and I can say the DB context. I shouldn't say DB context now because you might not know about these things at all, but just it's the word DB context. The DB context would be something in between to play with data, the database. So then I can add this entity to my DB context, but now we have nothing. So in the next chapter, I will start talking about entity framework a little bit. Please pay attention. This course is not entity framework course. I will just try to connect myself and my project to database. That's all. There is no more details. Thank you so much, and let's go for the next one.